Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with Charles Coulombe. Today, Charles will answer questions on politics, Malachi Martin, and monarchy. But first, we have a special request for you.
Yes, indeed we do.
We've started a Kickstarter campaign to improve the production quality of the show. We want to buy 2 wireless clip-on microphones and a camcorder to rotate in for a more engaging shot of Charles when he's talking. Camcorder will shoot across this way. And so this is a chance for you guys to help Charles reach more people, and in return, you'll receive an autographed book from him.
You bet.
The choices are White Cockade, Vicars of Christ, Puritan's Empire, and his latest book, Star Spangled Crown.
And I have to say, I was brought up in a family where it was considered very poor manners to talk about money. And this is, how do I put this nicely, mortifying. But, and here's the big but here, if it improves the quality of your experience, I'm willing to sacrifice. That's really, really disingenuous. Never mind. Let's get on with the show.
Okay. First off, what's with the safety pin? Is that a new fashion style, or what is that?
Well, the safety pin. I'm part now of something called the safety pin movement, which is symbolized by the wearing of a, safety pin. It began with Brexit, because, in the wake of Brexit, a lot of English voters were worried, hurt, disturbed, fearful. And so other folk adopted the safety pin to show basically that they're mobile safe spaces. You know the concept, we discussed this before, the concept of a safe place at a university, where if a student hears an idea from a teacher he doesn't like, or from another student, he feels microaggressed, or she, or whatever the person might be, at that particular moment in time, because that could change. Gender fluidity is very much a thing. So, the person can rush out of the classroom to a safe place, and they are usually attended by a faculty ally who is non-judgmental, doesn't require anything out of the individual. The individual can sit down with Play-Doh, drink chocolate milk, watch videos of puppies and bunnies, coloring books, that kind of thing, and sort of, pull themselves together after all they've been through. So, the idea behind the safety pin movement is that those of us who proudly wear the safety pin offer ourselves as mobile safe places. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're in the supermarket, right? And you suddenly flash on the fact that Trump won the election. You see somebody with a safety pin. You could go over and be comforted. But I have to tell you, I will do this for you if you're pro-Trump, if you're anti-Trump. I'm a monarchist. I'm used to nobody wanting, giving anything about what I feel. So I sympathize and empathize with the disenfranchised of all brands. So if you voted peace and freedom, or you voted libertarian, or you were a Democrat, or Republican, you didn't like Trump, or you did like him, and don't feel anyone appreciates him enough, whatever your shtick, I'm here for you. Because I'm mobile, I'm afraid I don't come equipped with the coloring books and the chocolate milk and the puppies and all that. But I will, to the best of my ability, try to radiate comfort.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Charles.
Certainly.
So the unthinkable happened. Trump won.
Hence the need for the safety pin.
Yes. This summer, you correctly predicted Trump would win.
Yes, I did.
So now we have a Republican Congress, Republican president, and potentially a more conservative Supreme Court on the way. I would normally assume that the government is going to be heading in the right direction again, except I'm remembering the first line of your book, Star Spangled Crown. The presidential election of 2016 produced a result quite as disastrous as all sides had feared. So when it comes to Trump's presidency, what are you pessimistic about? But what are you optimistic about?
Well, because as a member of the safety pin movement, I try to be optimistic. We'll start with that. Then we'll go on to the First the warm fuzzies, and then the cold pricklies.
Oh, okay.
The first warm fuzzy is no war with Russia.
Yes.
I'm like really into that.
Give peace a chance.
Yeah, definitely. War is harmful to children and other living things. And the narrative that the Obama administration and the Clinton campaign had given us was that we were in a Cold War with Russia, and it seemed quite likely we were in a shooting war to come. And the Russians underlined that great possibility. Putin or some of his spokespeople went as far as saying that if she's elected, there'll be war. So my first reaction is a sigh of relief
Yes.
that there won't be war.
Yes.
That's the first thing. The other warm fuzzies, such as they are, there are more. I just have to think of them. No, the other warm fuzzies, again, it may be that if he keeps his promises, it may be that Roe v. Wade will be tossed out and the question will go back to the states. Maybe they'll defund Planned Parenthood.
How can you just decide to review a settled law?
Oh, the way they always do. Remember that in our country, the custom has grown up that the Supreme Court can throw out anything, even its own previous rulings.
Wow.
So that's why they threw out Dred Scott eventually.
Oh, I see.
The anti-school and prayer and that kind of thing rulings in the 50s effectively threw out Trinity versus the Board of Education in 1890. So, I mean, the court is quite capable of reversing itself. Now, there are still a number of states that under whose laws abortion is illegal, but those laws are ineffective because of the Supreme Court's ruling. If they throw out Roe v. Wade, then those laws will be operative again. But in any case, what would happen is that rather than being a sacrament protected by the Constitution, abortion would be something that would have to be addressed politically once again by each of the states. So that's a warm fuzzy. There are a few others like that. Now for the cold pricklies. He firstly, even with the best will in the world, he has to deal with this Congress. And the Republican Senate this past week approved women being drafted.
Why would they do that?
Why? Well, the notion is it's an equality of opportunity. Now, I'm old-fashioned. To me, if I've got the obligation to be beaten to a pulp and you don't, giving you that same opportunity does not strike me as a good thing necessarily. But it's also true that in the armed forces, promotion of officers is much quicker for combat arms officers than it is for non-combat arms. So this is the kind of slant they put on it. The problem is that the military is not really supposed to be about equal opportunity, like some sort of weird game.
Mm-hmm.
It's about accomplishing the mission. What is going to have to happen is lowering physical standards in combat arms, and especially elite units like the SEALs, so that women can participate. Well, that's nice that they can participate. But the problem is, when you lower physical standards, not just for them, but of course for men, who would go into the SEALs, you don't have the high standard they have. Their ability to accomplish the mission is compromised. Moreover, it is a proved fact that when men and women are in combat together, men tend to attempt to protect the women in a way they would never do with fellow soldiers, with fellow male soldiers. It basically takes away from unit cohesion.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy idea. Now, drafting women to go into the military will have the added effect, if it ever happens in wartime, etc., of furthering endangering our population growth, such as it is. You know, one of the things that nobody seems to catch on to is that everything we're about seems to be about frustrating birth. You know?
Yeah.
the sorts of sexual activity we encourage. Contraception, abortion, getting women into the workplace. It's all about death. We have made a covenant with death and a treaty with hell. I hope we're happy.
Okay.
Oh, but I digress.
Yeah, any more quick, please?
You bet. Mr. Trump, of course, has reversed himself any number of times on various things, and a lot of people call into question his sincerity. At the end of the day, I suspect that a lot of his most fervent supporters today, in about a year's time, will feel the sort of weird hangover that Obama supporters did a year into the Obama presidency. Because the sad truth of the matter is, even with the best will in the world, there's only so much you can do with the political structure. There are problems in this country, like our basic attitude toward life, upon which I just touched, that cannot be solved through the ballot box. We are a country that is completely wired for personal convenience and enjoyment. That's nice in some degree, but it will not address the problems we face as a country. And no president could undo that problem.
What is going to happen to Obama's legacy? Is Trump just going to tear it all down, or?
No, he's already talking about reforming Obamacare instead of getting rid of it.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. I don't think anybody else does. I feel, and for all of you diehard Trump supporters out there, I feel that he's very situational. And I think that he will react to specific issues in whatever way his own intuition and that of his experts point him. I don't think he has an overarching strategy.
Do you think he's going to keep his promises on the conservative judges, the wall, trade, prosecuting Hillary Clinton? Is he going to?
I don't know. I will say, and I'll make this promise here, if he does undo Roe v. Wade, I will support him in the next election.
Wow.
I will do that. If he does something, because that will give him a lot of guff. A lot of the Republicans don't want that. Don't kid yourself. A lot of this country likes being able to behave irresponsibly and kill whatever children result from it. Infanticide in my lifetime, infanticide has become something most of us cherish. I suppose we're great because we're good.
But I take it you won't be holding your breath.
No, but he could surprise me. As to the other stuff, the racism, the this, the that, he is already showing himself very accommodating. And see, what the people are all upset about is being a sexist and a racist and a this and a that. He's a businessman. And American businessmen are very flexible. It's just the nature of the beast. I think in that area, he said what he had to say to galvanize his base. He's in power now. So now if he wants to get rehired in 4 years, he's got to become really popular to a majority of the people. How far that takes us down the road of compromise, I don't know. We'll find out.
Listening to one of your talks you did with Mr. Biersack last Friday, you made a couple pretty serious predictions, and I think our audience would be interested in hearing these.
Sure. Well, one of them I predicted was that I thought there was a very good chance he would be impeached. And I suspect that if he annoys the Republican establishment enough, they will try to find something with which to impeach him. If that were to happen, his vice president is eminently preferable to them than he himself is. But again, if he doesn't annoy them, there'll be no need for that. We'll see. At the time I made those predictions, he had not already begun to backtrack on certain things.
Well, can you get impeached for things you did before you were the president?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see.
Wow. Okay. Oh, yeah, one more. Watching the election results on CNN, Van Johnson was very sad when it was pretty clear that Trump was going to win, and he called the election a white lash.
Yes, I saw that.
Is that what that was? Is that what the election was?
No, quite the opposite. In fact, it was a blacklash.
Really?
Oh yeah. See, here's the thing. Why did she lose? She lost because urban blacks in Cleveland, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Detroit did not turn out in the numbers they turned out for Mr. Obama. If they had, she would have carried Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Michigan, and she would have won the presidency. And oddly enough, there are only two commentators that I have seen that have made that connection. Now, there may be others, but it was Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle.
Two comedians.
Well, in my experience, comedians are often far more truthful and perspicacious than, I don't know, the staff of CNN. No, basically, what cost Hillary the election, just as Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock said, blacks in those states who turned out to vote for a 40-year-old young dynamic black man would not turn out for a 70-year-old white woman. That is what cost her the election. Now, couple that with the fact that she considered those states the blue wall where she didn't have to do any work, and spent her time campaigning among people who were going to vote for her anyway.
Yeah.
You know, she needed to ensure that those guys came out. And she didn't. But, as I say, if you're a Democrat and you want to point the finger at someone for this election, you could point it at the urban black population in those four states. They did not come out for her.
Wow.
And I said, you may remember this, I said that this election would be determined by who stayed home, not by who came out.
You also said that it would surprise people how many black people would be interested in Trump, too.
Yeah.
I remember you said that.
I did, and it does.
Yeah.
And also the fact that a majority of women voted for him. You know, you see, here's the problem. We have grown so used to believing whatever the talking heads told us on the TV. And this, by the way, this is another one of them warm fuzzies.
Mm-hmm.
One thing this election has showed us is that they don't know their rears from their elbows. They don't know excrement from Shinola. They don't know anything. They are very attractive, very well-paid boobs who are completely out of touch with the country they presume to inform about itself.
And you know what's funny about that? They'll agree with you about that, but they'll say that it applies to everyone other than them. Wait, you remember that? The bad-mouthed mainstream media?
Yeah.
In parentheses, but not me.
No, not me. Somehow I was good. You know, honestly, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out certain things. They refuse to acknowledge the deep-set resentment in this country at the speed of change that's taken place over the past couple of decades. They wouldn't look at that. They refused. Because right-thinking people could never think that way. And obviously the majority, because I'm into democracy and such, will always be right-thinking. And now one of my senators, Barbara Boxer, she who once said very memorably that no Catholic who believes what his church says should ever be allowed to be a judge. That, Senator Barbara Boxer. She's introduced a bill to get rid of the Electoral College. Oh, is she upset? Well, I might as well go off on this as well.
Okay.
The Electoral College. Think of what would have happened without it. The election would have been decided by California, Texas, Florida, and New York. And flyover country could go to hell. If you don't live in one of the four major populous states, your vote, that is to say, your life, would mean nothing. Because remember, you only matter to these people anyway, to the degree that they can massage you and get you to vote for them. That's the only value you've got for them. If it weren't for the Electoral College, outside of this state, my native state, Texas and Florida, none of the American electorate would matter at all. And Trump said, if there was no Electoral College, he'd have won anyway, but he would have campaigned very different.
It's true. I mean, it's the nature of the game.
Yeah. So whenever you hear someone say, "Oh, I agree with the Electoral College," I don't mind you saying that if you're from Texas, California, Florida, or New York.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is, we count and the rubes don't. Okay. That I'm not saying that's a nice thing to say, but it's honest. But if you say that, and you're from any other state of this union, you're a moron.
I actually, before the election played out, I was encountering conservatives who were saying abolish the Electoral College because they were disenfranchised, that their vote did not count, really, in California.
That's correct. But if you don't, that's the price you pay for living in California. I mean, to move the focus for a minute to Sacramento, the Democrats may have a supermajority in the state legislature now. I don't know. I have to check. If they have achieved this, they have a good chance of getting rid of Proposition 19 or 13.
What is that?
That is the thing that so far, for the past 30 years or more, has provided a cushion for property owners in this state. Has kept property taxes from crawling way, way up the way they did before. Governor Brown would like to get rid of that thing. The Democrats in the state assembly would like to get rid of it. If they do, the first thing will be to try to jack property prices as far up as possible in order to, quote-unquote, soak the rich. The second thing will happen will be an enormous flight of the wealthy from this state. There's some ridiculous fragment of the state, like 25, 15% or something. I'm bad with figures. But they're the ones who pay the vast majority of the taxes. Everyone else just, drinks from the cow. You drive those people out, what are we going to have in the state? And at that juncture, if a man like your friend starts arguing the Electoral College, it's your own idiotic fault for staying in California. If at that point, when you're living in a state where property is being seized by the government right and left, why would you stay there?
Yeah.
Even if you're not rich, because it don't happen. The wealthy vamoose, the housing market will be depressed because they'll offload their holdings. And will that leave normal people in middle-class housing that have just been hold on to, paying much higher taxes they won't be able to afford? They have to go and it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
One of the, and this is a specifically Californian problem, one of the funniest, and I put that in quotation marks, things I ever heard was some state apparatchik on a radio program being interviewed. And he let slip something interesting when they were talking about the budget crisis in the state.
Okay.
He said, well, there's actually still an awful lot of money left in California, but so much of it is still in private hands.
Wow. Okay.
And I thought, yeah, that's a problem, all right. So, under Trump, that is not going to be fixed. And if you live in a state that's run by very stupid people, you're still going to be in a state that's run by stupid people. Not that being stupid is a bad thing. As a Californian, I'm not capable of judging. And if anyone out here self-identifies as stupid, I'm good with that. And I'm here for you.
Okay. Anthony sent you an email and says, I see that you are a member of the International Monarchist League. What is this league? What do they do? Are there events going on still? Would you recommend joining?
In a nutshell, look it up in Wikipedia. Basically, the International Monarchist League was founded in London in 1944 as World War II was closing down. Basically, it was founded by a group of people in different elements of British society who had noticed that the wholesale abolition of monarchies after World War I had paved the way for both Hitler and communism. This was by no means a view restricted to them. Churchill said very much the same thing. They did not want to see that happen again after the Second World War that was being fought. So they formed with the idea of trying to influence the British government to stand up for the monarchies in the Balkans and Italy and so forth, so that the same thing didn't happen twice. As you can imagine from subsequent history, their success was non-existent. Nevertheless, the League has continued to soldier on ever since then. And basically, it has three goals. One is to bring monarchists of all sorts together, because monarchists are very, according to nationality and their theories of monarchy, they're very divided. Two is to preserve monarchies where they currently exist. Third is to restore them where that's possible. Now, in the United States, the Monarchist League do not argue for restoration here, which for a number of reasons would be difficult to imagine. But they do hope to educate Americans the benefits of monarchy for folks overseas. Because remember, especially since the 20th century, it was direct American action that precipitated the abolition of said monarchies and opened the doors for a lot of unpleasantry, bloodshed, and so forth, much of which damaged this country. You know, if our unrelenting anti-monarchism, in terms of our foreign policy, had ever done us any good, you might be able to see an argument for it. But it never has. It's never done us any good at all. In the immortal, just to give you one example, in the immortal words of Richard Nixon, greasing the skids for the Shah, that's been the gift that's just kept on giving. You know, we're still reaping the benefits of that moronic decision by President Carter.
All right, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed listening to Charles, you can contact us through the Tumbler House website. Also, you can subscribe to the Tumbler House YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, and good night.